We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go. We wanna go. We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go. We wanna go.
Today, you're going to discover the innovation behind Australia's first electric vehicle charger in a streetlight column, find out the results of the recent trial in Port Macquarie, and learn what is possible in the future for this technology. Good morning and welcome to our webinar on the EV charger in a streetlight column. I'm Kelly Stewart, Marketing Manager at Wagners CFT, and I'm here with Essential Energy's Manager of Innovation, Bradley Trethewey, and Innovation Operations Delivery Lead, Stuart Simpson. Brad is a Senior Manager at Essential Energy and an experienced electrical and computer systems engineer. He currently leads Essential Energy's innovation team and has decades of experience in network asset management, standards and innovation within the industry. Meanwhile, Stuart has been the lead on Essential Energy's innovation initiatives for the deployment of destination EV charging at lowest cost for customers using existing infrastructure. In particular, the 4-week intensive technical trial of the EV charger in a Wagners fibre-reinforced polymer streetlight column, which we're about to discuss. We're also joined by Wagners CFT Utility Product Lead, James Lorrimer. James is the go-to for all utility products at Wagners CFT, including crossarms, utility and light poles. James works closely with Wagners' customer base of network operators and our in-house R&D team to offer continuous product improvement and help enhance and maximise network security and resilience. Welcome, Brad, Stuart and James. Before we get started, just a few webinar protocols. We are recording today's event and we'll make the recording public via the Wagners CFT YouTube channel. You can ask a question anytime during the webinar via the chat bubble at the top of the screen. However, we will hold your questions over to the end of the webinar for the Q&A session. And for anybody who has technical issues today accessing that chat facility, I'm just popping my mobile number in there now and you'll be able to text me your questions directly to that mobile number. All right. Well, let's jump in. Over to you, Brad and Stuart.
Thanks, Kelly, for that introduction on behalf of Stuart and myself. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about one of our innovation initiatives, which is the composite streetlight column with an EV charger incorporated in it. We might start by just talking about who Essential Energy is for those that aren't familiar with what we do and where we are co-located in our footprint here. So we're a distribution utility and we provide the poles and wires services to 95% of New South Wales and parts of Queensland. We have around about 900,000 customers and we have an extensive asset base. So over 1.4 million poles, and about 183,000 kilometres of overhead lines, which supports 86 local councils within our footprint. And probably a bit of a history here on the relationship between Wagners and ourselves. It's been quite an extensive and long relationship over a couple of decades, co-developing products for use in electrical distribution purposes. I've got a couple of three images here on the slide here that sort of show our journey with Wagners. So back in 2007, we started trialing composite cross arms, and by 2012, we'd fully transformed our business to use composite cross arms, and that's all we currently use on our network now. We found them to have excellent service performance. Moving on, we started trialing poles, composite poles, in 2014, and included them in our design criteria for complex areas since around about 2016. And we're now fully transitioning over to composites over the next few years. And then finally on to today's topic, which is really all about the streetlight column and where we're at with that. So we've been working with Wagners to develop up a prototype and been trialing different variations and iterations since 2023. In this particular instance, we co-developed the product, and we'll talk about the value stack outcome of this particular initiative as we walk through the slide deck. So what was the idea? I think the idea here was, could we value stack our investment in composite technologies to open EV charging to regional and rural and remote New South Wales, accelerating the transition to net zero for the benefit of our customers? And we had four primary partners we work with here. So obviously Wagners, producing the composite streetlight column. EVX was our charging provider, and they did an excellent job in producing a charger that could fit into the column that Wagners designed for us. And lastly, but certainly by no means least, was the substantial support we got from Port Macquarie Hastings Council here in terms of selecting the trial location site and providing adequate parking facilities. In terms of the challenges, the challenges are all great in hindsight. They look really easy, but at the time they weren't the easiest things to overcome. And I mean, I guess the proof in the pudding is that we're here today talking about a trial that's been relatively successful, quite successful actually. And so prime challenge was, could Wagners give us enough of an opening in the column without affecting the mechanical performance of the column? And kudos to Wagners for achieving that outcome for us. The next challenge was, well, given the size of the hole that we could get, or the opening we could get in the column, could we find a charging hardware provider who could develop a charger to fit within that column? And EVX stepped into the picture there and did a great outcome for us. Now, this third challenge might not be overly clear to a lot of people on this call, but we're a regulated business. Essential Energy has a regulated income stream. We're a monopoly outcome, as are most or all utilities in Australia that provide electrical distribution services. So to do this particular trial, we needed to overcome some regulatory barriers, and that meant we had to apply for a waiver to our regulator to actually perform this trial. Our regulator was very accommodating and provided a waiver for that trial to occur, and we've shared those learnings with the regulator. Now, turning our mind to the customer's view on this, one of the challenges here is the charging rate enough to be useful for EVs? And probably the last thing here is, would customers respond positively to the concept? And I won't belabor these points here, because later on the deck we'll get to those points. So what did we want to do this? What did Essential Energy want to do this? For us, the imperative here is to facilitate more EV charging in regional New South Wales. And some key points here that you can find on the web and also from government research is that regional Australians, and that doesn't matter what region you're in, New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, Western Australia, the like, travel 20% more than urban residents in Australia. And that translates to a higher emissions outcome. Average outcomes here for an internal combustion passenger vehicle, it emits about 2.3 tonnes of carbon dioxide per year. And if you add another 20% on top of that, you can see the drive and the outcomes of potential benefits just from an emissions perspective for deploying of EV chargers across regional parts of Australia. So moving on to the site, and this one we're very happy with the outcome here. What makes an ideal site for a trial in a composite streetlight column to maximise the amount of learnings that we could get for all the parties. So I mentioned ourselves, Wagners, EVX and Port Council. So the ideal site here, you can see an image on the right-hand side here of where the site is. It is within immediate proximity to our beachfronts here in Port Macquarie. So the distance from where the charger is located to the ocean is around about 150 metres. The site's elevated, so unfortunately, obviously a map like this doesn't show the elevation, but it's a very elevated site, so it is fully exposed to a salt-prone environment. The criteria for us when we're looking through what we were going to select as a site was, well, was there adequate parking space for EVs and a parking time that allowed for a reasonable charge outcome. And then I guess sort of a value stack outcome here was there an existing streetlight column that was on the end of its useful life that could be replaced. We've talked to the fully exposed environment. This particular site is within 3 minutes walk of Port Macquarie's CBD area, and as you can see from the image here, very close to beach and tourist facilities. And probably the last point we're looking for on the site was a site that could serve both our local residents and visitors to the area. I'll talk through quickly the design process, and I'll hand over to Stuart, who will walk you through a few more slides. So the design process. So we developed a number of ideas and sort of, I guess you call them desktop ideas with Wagners, and then shortlisted a number of those desktop ideas for build and then finalised destructive testing. So you can see in the image on the right-hand side there, one of the shortlisted prototype designs scheduled for destructive testing at Wagners test facility in Toowoomba. And we went through a number of iterations of the design outcome and destructive tests and down selected to the appropriate one that we would deploy in terms of a trial. I'll hand over to Stuart now. I'll take you through the rest of the deck.
Thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'll talk through the trial that we ran in Port Macquarie at that site that Brad just ran through. So we ran this over a 4-week period from the 13th of May to the 9th of June this year. So a bit on what Brad's already touched on, but the purpose of this trial was to test the technical performance of both the column produced by Wagners and the 7 kilowatt EV charger that was produced by EVX in fully exposed conditions. And we were also able to gather feedback from the community through a survey we ran on our Essential Engagement website, where we were able to capture feedback on their thoughts around both the location, the trial, and the ease of use, and some other things like that, which I'll go through these slides. So the charger itself, what is it? So this, the design and everything, what is it? So the column is made completely from composite materials. James will talk to this a little bit later, but the column itself is inherently inert, corrosive, corrosion-proof, and electrically non-conductive. So over our traditional streetlight columns, there's some benefits already immediately available by just using a composite product. So it uses existing infrastructure, which reduces the requirements for capital expenditure if we were to look at putting a separate charger in the vicinity of this site. And it also and there's also visual amenity benefits from using it as well. So you can see on the picture on the right there, the charger is fully enclosed with just the charger port coming out of the column, which is aesthetically pleasing, which we also found from the results of that survey. There was quite a few comments from users on the aesthetically pleasing aspects of that. So the column fits a fully functional 7 kilowatt EV charger produced by EVX. So At the time, there was nothing on the market that was readily available to fit into this column. EVX were able to produce a charger that fit into this with no additional hardware required. And there's also, we made an extra addition at the top of the column, which you can't see in this picture, but we added an additional port at the top, where in the future we may be able to add additional installations such as things like 5G repeaters, security cameras and the like, where we can have additional benefits to these kinds of columns. So the column itself, the changes we made with Wagners, we went through a design process on how we can look to fit this charger in. So it being quite a small area, we had to try and find as much space as possible to be able to fit this charger. So the picture on the left there, the bottom box in orange, that is the existing electrical access hatch that you'll find on most streetlight columns. What we've done is added an additional access hatch above that second orange box where the charger fits inside the column. Wagners were able to make this as large as possible, so we could fit that charger and all the fusing and everything to go with that and have plenty of space to do so. Now, on to the results of the survey. So we had quite a good response, as you can see from some of the statistics here. Over the 4-week period, we had 31 voluntary responses on that survey. So we had a QR code on the poll where people could come and scan, which would take them to our engagement site as well as the survey. So talking through some of this here, you'll see the second dot point there, 88% of respondents said that they would want to travel less than 10 kilometers for a charger. Now, this is a critical one for this type of charger, being it's a curbside charger, 7 kilowatts as a destination style charger. Now, in Essential Energy's footprint in New South Wales at the moment, we have quite a large footprint, but we only have one charger per 503 square kilometres per charger in our network. Now, we compare that to Ausgrid and Endeavour, which is primarily in the urban areas of New South Wales. They have about 27 square kilometres per charger. Now, that is 88% of people saying they want to travel less than 10 kilometres for a charger. It shows the need for these kind of chargers to be able to be rolled out and the positive responses that we had from users. You can also see a lot of people found it easy to use. They enjoyed that there was a high utilization rate of this charger. So we had, I think, just over 21% utilization of the charger over that 4-week period, with plenty of positive responses. Now onto the next slide there, Brad. This is some of the verbatim feedback we had through this engagement site. So there was a couple of open-ended questions where we could get some comments on what people liked about the charger or anything else that they wanted to add. And most of these here are around how excited they were about the benefits to using an existing infrastructure, the seamless look, the amenity of it, how close it was to town and the beach and the location. It also showed that this it catered to a lot of different people and different lifestyles. One of the questions we had was what time of day you would use this. Now, we had varying responses around the 24-hour period of a day, which showed that it catered to people coming into town, people wanting to park overnight, people commuting to work, people traveling through, or people going to the beach. So there was plenty of different use cases for it and a really good outcome. And then again, onto more of the outcomes. So this quote here at the top of the slide here, this is one of the biggest outcomes we saw from this, and a really positive response from the Port Macquarie Council. So they voted in the next general meeting they held after the conclusion of the trial that they would support further long-term trials or a permanent provision of an EV charger at this site. Now, we were very happy with this because it meant that the council also saw a positive outcome from their constituents and customers, and definitely were happy with the idea and the amenity of it. Some of the benefits, some of the outcomes we found from this trial, being a technical trial, was it was a positive introduction of new technology and very successful. It used the existing infrastructure, as we've touched on. It showed a clear customer need through the utilization and the varying times that people used it. Now, something also we can touch on here, Essential Energy being an existing infrastructure, Essential Energy has a asset inspection program where we regularly inspect our assets and check for any issues or faults or anything like that. Now, being in the column, we can ensure that this a charger like this on our existing asset would fall into that existing inspection program as well, and ensure that maintenance is done in a quick pace. And again, the high utilization that we had over that 4-week trial. Now, I'll just pass over to Brad, who will just cover off what our next steps are with these chargers. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Before I get into this slide, just also wanted to make mention of the feedback we got through other channels. So we talked to the feedback direct to our survey, which was 31 responses. So I think it might be 32 now. We also got feedback from other social media channels, so LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook, and a large number of comments there, and also from the EV charging applications like PlugShare, where customers are able to put in comments. Invariably, the comments were all very positive outcomes from the user base of the charger, and that's obviously got us quite excited, which leads naturally to what are the next steps for what we see in developing out this outcome. So I guess probably to turn to this slide now, what we found from this trial was that it validated the need for ubiquitous Type 2 EV public charging. The usage rate was extraordinarily high. The customer feedback was all positive on all platforms that use the charger. And I guess overall, as an initiative, we feel that it's provided a opportunity for reduction of street furniture. So what are we going to do next? Look, we are going to spend some time refining the designer solution based off the trial learnings. This was a technical trial in order to learn what technical aspects we needed to develop up for a more longer term outcome on the premise that it was successful. So we've shared the learnings with our partners, Wagners and EVX, for both the column and the charger, and we've got learnings of our own. We want to share those learnings, and so we're talking today to you folk about what we've learned through this particular trial and how it went for us, in order to accelerate the transition for the lowest possible cost, and in particular leveraging existing infrastructure. So when you think about streetlights, and in particular streetlight columns across Australia, they're an underutilised asset during the day. Obviously, there's no energy consumption during the day. And even at night time, there is still significant capacity. Most utilities in Australia have a transition to LED street lighting, which has a markedly less less consumption of energy than older style lamps and luminaires. So at this particular site, it was designed for an older style incandescent or compact fluorescent style luminaire. That's long gone. So in the ground, you have in a lot of cases, you have quite an amount of capacity in an asset. Probably a third point here is that we're working on a longer term second trial, incorporating the learnings from this trial. So Stuart already touched on this. The Port Macquarie Council would like to see us either turn this existing site into another lengthier trial or a more permanent outcome. We're committed to commencing a second trial with a view to permanent outcome. And I do want to leave a bit of a thunder moment for our partners here, Wagners. The last point I'll make here, and Wagners will pick up on this as we head back to them, is we're instigating a new initiative looking at diversification of charging capability across our asset base. And I'll hand back to Wagners now to talk through those points.
Over to you, James. We might let you pick up from here. Introducing James Lorrimer, who is our utility products lead at Wagners CFT.
Good morning all, and thanks Kelly, Brad and Stuart. So I thought I would start by highlighting what has briefly already been mentioned, but the biggest driver for the success of this trial. So choosing Wagners for the EV charging project in Port Macquarie offered significant advantages over traditional materials. These composite columns are non-conductive, which means they eliminate touch potential, significantly enhancing the safety of our contractors and the public. Wagner's FRP street columns also offer superior durability with an expected 50-year design life. Plus, the risk of vandalism and theft is reduced as the charger is housed inside the column. This ensures a longer lifespan and lower maintenance for the cost for the asset owner. Additionally, the lightweight nature of the column facilitates the easier and more cost-effective installation, allowing to reduce wear and tear on machinery. So they're just a few key benefits for an FRP profile. I'd just like to do a quick shout out to Brad and Stuart and the team at EE. This project obviously would never be possible without their support, and it's wonderful to see such a diverse group of attendees at today's webinar. Over the past 12 months, this project evolved into a remarkable success story. Although Wagners didn't invent the EV charger, we combined our technology with our customers' needs, leading to the introduction of EV charger within a composite column. And this is the first of its kind. Wagners are deeply committed to collaborating with other networks, councils, asset owners, developers to advance leading technologies. And today I extend an invite to anyone here on the webinar today to reach out if your organisation is facing any challenges that our composite solution may be able to address. Throughout this trial, both Essential Energy and Wagners, team of engineers and R&D experts, dedicated their time to perfect the final product, which was an adaptation to our already successful street lighting product. This project is one of, like Brad mentioned, one of several successful collaborations between Wagners and Essential Energy, and we're hoping for the continuous support from these guys. But this is no different to the work with our bridge, boardwalk, marine infrastructure space, where our experienced team of engineers, led by our technical lead, Dr. Ali, and our lab manager, Dr. Sam, it really seems that there is nothing impossible for these guys. As you can see here on my screen, this is our cantilever test, and Brad did mention this previously, but it was important to find out whether our 178mm circular hollow section met the deflection criteria of 5%. Even with the 600mm access hatch cut out of to house the EV charger, which was provided by AVX. So we did a lot of testing to make sure that this would be, I guess, an asset for our client, and it was successful. So we're very proud of that one. So Wagner CFT also has an environmental product declaration, which gives our customers credible environmental information about our products that is verified by third party and internationally recognised. This EPD gives our customers the tools they need to be able to calculate the environmental impact of our product on the environment and the use to make educated decisions on product selection with the view of reducing global warming and meeting reduced carbon targets. We have a great webinar about the EPD, which you can watch on demand. So after this webinar, I think Kelly will send a link with a follow-up email. Otherwise, feel free to scan the QR code that's currently on the screen. And this will take you directly to the YouTube video. Now for the short and sweet sales pitch. We are ready to tackle the next challenge. What will be the breakthrough that boosts and safeguards resilience? What does the future look like for EV charging? Imagine a world where you're driving in rural New South Wales or anywhere for that matter, and there is EV charging stations housed inside composite utility poles. But it doesn't stop there. So we invite you all to join us in innovating and help turn this into a reality. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for your presentation, James, Brad and Stuart. Look, we're going to give the guys just a couple of minutes to have a look at the great questions that are coming through on the chat facility there. Samira, I just did want to let you know that, yes, we are recording today's event and we will send it out in a follow-up email to everybody who's attending today or who has registered for this event, so you'll be able to share with your internal teams. While the guys have a quick look at those questions, I'm just going to share a little bit more information about Wagners EPD. Wagners CFT published its Environmental Product Declaration about 6 months ago with EPD Australasia. The EPD, as James said, is third-party verified and is internationally recognised. So our customer base right around the globe can use the information that is contained in that EPD to calculate the environmental impact of a product on the environment. In the construction industry, there are literally thousands of EPDs published for just about every component of a project. So that allows project managers to accurately calculate the environmental impact of their project on the environment and make educated decisions on reducing environmental impact through the products they choose. We wanted to tell you really briefly about a comparison, life cycle assessment comparison that we've just done, completed recently that has been third-party verified. We found that when we compared FRP utility poles to galvanised steel, the results showed that when you compare the two across the full life cycle of over 100-year service life, FRP shows 39% less total global warming potential impacts than galvanised steel. So for businesses looking to achieve 2030 targets and contribute towards cooling the planet, choosing FRP utility poles over more traditional materials like galvanised steel will help achieve that. If you'd like a copy of Wagners CFT's EPD, use the QR code on the screen there now, or I will pop the link in the chat facility now, but don't forget I'll also send it out as a link after this meeting as well. So I'd now like to introduce Wagners CFT General Manager Ryan Leeson, who's going to facilitate the Q&A session today. Looks like we've got some great questions there, Ryan.
Thanks very much, Kelly. Probably first one for you, Brad, and I think it's a good place to start with the regulator. I know there was a fair piece around the regulator and your initial approvals, and so maybe just covering off that initial waiver, but also maybe what it looks like in the future with the regulator, how you think, networks like Essential will be able to integrate these sort of charging opportunities.
Sure. Yeah, so as I mentioned during the webinar, we're a regulated business, as are every other distribution network in Australia. And that regulatory framework effectively permits what you can and cannot do in terms of business activities. So for Essential Energy here to do this particular trial, we were proposing, what we did do, we said, well, this is our streetlight column, we'll install the EV charger and monitor it and provide those results to our colleagues here as well as to the regulator. The waiver that we needed to take for this one was twofold. One is it's stepping in an area of business where Essential Energy currently does not operate, which is EV charging facility capability. So therefore, that was one reason we need to get a waiver. And secondly, the metering requirements, which I think has come through in the chat, is the significant challenge for EV provision in the footprint that we're talking about. The physicalities of the size of the charger and the column and the available space meant that we couldn't put in a standard revenue grade meter. Now, those rules are changing. By 2026, there is a rule set that's coming in that will alter that framework to permit a much smaller meter. And in fact, it's highly likely that those rules will come in before 2026, given the developments here and this particular trial that we're able to show to the regulator. The technology stack's ready now. So, I guess that sort of flows in naturally to the second trial and what we will attempt to do there, which is more aligned to a meter that will align to the 2026 outcomes and a charger that will be there for a longer period of time.
Very good. Thank you, Brad. James, this one might be for you. Does the pole have a slip base? From the photos and my limited understanding of light poles, I don't think it does, but is there a slip base option and maybe why a slip base wasn't used in this application? I'm assuming that it wasn't.
Yeah, good question. So typically under the, in a slow zone area, a slip base isn't necessary. It depends on different networks, I assume. But yes, our poles can be retrofitted, and they have been retrofitted into a slip base, which is obviously a requirement for over 50, over 60 kilometers an hour, depending on what network you are. But we have, and we are still in the process of doing testing. There is international testing that kind of provides the results that a composite pole acts as if a frangible pole, and I guess it's the makeup of the pole winding that we do. It doesn't allow for, I guess a frangible pole is something that will hold its shape. It will hold the luminaire attachment, so it makes it a safe pole. We are not quite there for the testing, but we do have the information from overseas, and I guess we're still yet to do the testing, but Wagners have a fantastic R&D testing facility, and from all the testing that we do there, we can comfortably say it would more or less be a frangible pole.
Thank you, James. This one might be best for you, Stuart. Was consideration given to mounting a cabinet to the pole rather than incorporating it within the pole? And maybe, I know that's a piece that EE are doing some work on for future rollouts. Maybe just a bit of a background on that one as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Good question. So the reason that we didn't go for a cabinet, so that definitely could be done, and it has been done in other instances on utility poles. So there are places in our network where we've done some trials with EVX as well. And I think there are some other ones in some other networks as well where they've been placed on utility poles. For this particular one, we wanted to fit it inside the column. So with the streetlight column and being composite, there was an opportunity which we saw to put the charger inside of the column. Now that stops us having things like mounting points, touch potentials, and the like, where we thought it'd be a lot safer and a lot more aesthetically pleasing, as well as the amenity of it being available along street sides if we were to roll this out further. So it definitely could be done, but our preference was to not do that in this instance.
And I guess a follow-on from that, have you considered cable disconnect mechanism if the pole does get hit?
Brad, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So in this particular instance, not for this trial, but this is no different to any other streetlight column that we have on our network, which has a cable running up to the head of the column. So, I mean, I guess the question here is, do you retrofit brake links to an existing column, or is this a greenfield outcome? And I mean, at the moment, we haven't seen in our footprint a need for this in terms of a disconnect outcome. We feel it's probably no different to what you would have in the existing column. It is a point for discussion, and I think we're yet to finally land on what we will do here. But there's no technical barrier to doing it. If probably that's probably the point that's being asked here. We just at this point in time aren't sure about it being a useful addition.
Okay, and as far as Port Mac being chosen as the council to partner with, Sean, maybe we can provide you the contact details after the meeting personally for the right contact for you to reach out to. But how did Port Mac come about? I'm assuming it's a home ground. Everyone prefers to play on their home ground. But was there any other areas considered maybe, and where would next trials be within the essential patch?
Stuart, do you want me to pick up on that? You can fill in.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, Ryan's already alluded to it. Port Macquarie is our head office area, but in conjunction with that, we have our own test facility here in Port Macquarie. Our Wagners have got a great test facility. We've got one of our own, and it's a lot more easier for us to develop and I guess prototype ideas in our Port Macquarie lab and then quickly deploy at a site that's nearby. We're fortunate enough in that we also had a great contact at our council here who was very keen to trial this out. So that's, I guess, kind of why. Stuart, do you want to pick up on the where to next steps And by the way, I think Kelly was going to share a contact detail for us at the end of this webinar, so feel free to email us for some more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I'll make sure that you get all the details that you need to continue those conversations with Brad and Stuart after the webinar today, and everybody else will receive an email directly, to be able to speak to these guys and ask any more additional questions that you might have after the webinar today.
So next steps there, we'll look to work with hopefully with council there, looking to do some future trials if we can at that site, and we'll continue working with EVX and Wagners on refining those products and looking to how we can expand them in the future when our regulations allow us to do so.
Well, I guess just picking up on the next steps there, we're keen to talk to other councils within our footprint around this initiative. We do think there's an unmet demand here, an unmet need that we would like to talk to our council about. So we'll be reaching out in due course.
Okay, and this is probably a lead into the next question, but there was a lot of commentary, as you mentioned, on some of the social media platforms. Maybe the LinkedIn comments were a bit more professional and a bit more engineering orientated. Some of the Facebook ones were more broad. How does Essential sort of take on board that feedback, and do you review that feedback, or is it something you're not too worried about?
No, we definitely reviewed all feedback, and I think our observation of this in terms of social media is a fascinating insight to the challenges of the transition. So you have a microcosm of different views and different opinions all mashing together. We looked and monitored our social media very, very closely. This got, Stuart, was it over 800,000 hits on social media? Does that sound right?
80,000?
80,000, sorry, 80,000 hits. And a substantial amount of comments. And clearly in any social media channel, there is people that are vehemently on one side of the fence, vehemently on the other side. And we saw that in the Facebook comments. But I guess we've sort of taken the view that the Facebook comments that were negative, most of the time, other people inside in the community addressed those comments and addressed them very well. We didn't need to step in. The key feedback for us was user experience and behavior, because they're the people who are actually using it, not the people that are just making comment on it. And there wasn't a single negative comment about the usability, the accessibility, or the need for this charging capability in Australia. But I think it's just a fascinating, particularly Facebook stuff, it's a fascinating insight to the challenges we all face in our communities. Stuart, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add on. There were no negative comments about, or not really any negative comments about the charger or the project. It was more around the political side of electric vehicles as opposed to internal combustion engines. So it was more around that with those negative things we had on Facebook, and some things with people parking in the designated EV charging spots for the duration of that of that trial, who had internal combustion engines. So it's more around that sort of thing than the project itself.
Okay, thank you guys, and well answered. I think that's broadly accepted of Wagners view on it as well. Which, like I said, was a prelude, the 7 kilowatt charger is what is noted in a question here, and that's often considered a slow charging option. And I know our sort of option here is looking to incorporate it into utility poles that may have a higher energy source. Just do you want to provide a bit of commentary on the charging, slow and fast charging options, and maybe where you see those both fitting in the market?
I could take that first if you want, Brad.
Yeah.
So at the moment, so 7 kilowatts isn't necessarily that slow. So that gives you roughly around 40 kilometers of range per hour of charge for an electric vehicle. if you think about a home circuit, you're looking at potentially 3 kilowatts or less. So it's a step up from that, and it is a destination charger. So it does cater to being there for potentially a couple of hours at a time. It's not your fast style that you pull in at the side of the highway and charge at. And the benefit to this is it's more accessible, it's cheaper to deploy, and more available for electric vehicle drivers than a fast charger would be, and it also has potentially less strain on the vehicle. So, being on a single phase circuit as well, 7 kilowatts is the maximum we can get out of that at the moment. You can look at a 3-phase circuit that might go up to 22 kilowatts, but at the moment, the 7 kilowatt is the most that we could get on that particular circuit. So Brad, did you have want to add to that?
Yeah, I might just add a couple of extra comments. And Ryan's had already alluded to this, as has James. Our next big initiative, apart from extending this existing trial and doing something more permanent in this site, is to try and incorporate an EV charger into a distribution pole. Now, they're physically much larger, so your footprint and availability outcomes are potentially higher. And we're working very closely with Wagners on that initiative, which will be a much higher charge rate than 7 kilowatts. Stuart's already touched on the availability and what the existing infrastructure can accommodate, and 7 kilowatts is about the mark for a large portion of our existing street light infrastructure. The thing that we were testing here in this trial was not only the technical outcomes, but the customer experience. And I've got to say, we were very pleasantly surprised. We had read some research based on the UK, and the UK's deployed a large number of 3 kilowatt or less chargers in street furniture, and their utilisation rates, we just didn't believe. We thought, surely that can't be right. People won't use it. So we went with the 7 kilowatt one, maxing out our infrastructure as much as possible. And our trial suggests that, there is a unmet customer demand for destination style charging like this. A 4-hour parking bay, which is what we worked out with Port Council, will get you, depending on your vehicle, for 4 hours, will get you about a 50% charge. That's substantial if you're parking in a CBD area. The other benefit, I guess, that we'd probably talk to of this technology, and we do need to think about EV charging holistically. So there's a place for destination charging and a place for fast charging. There's no question about that in the market. But the advantage from a network perspective and from a energy optimization perspective for destination charging is they're significantly useful to establish longer term loads for the challenges we're facing around solar and how it's impacting network performance and the cost basis that might be imposed on utilities to augment network to allow for more solar. If we're going to provide flexible loads like this, then we could produce a lower cost outcome. Sorry for the long answer there, but it was certainly a substantial topic of discussion. If you want some more insights into our thinking here, feel free to reach out.
Very good. Thank you, Brad. And we might just call this the last question, but any ones that haven't been answered in this session, we will follow up offline and make sure we circulate them through. James, this is for you. Have varying height poles been considered with the current design for the various mounting heights of luminaires, CCTV or telco hardware? And how would that sort of work, I guess, with the different diameter poles that may sit those arrangements, integration with the different EV suppliers like EVX, and just more broadly cover off that difference in design?
Yeah, good question. Look, Wagners have a whole range of poles that have been certified up to 12 meter. So we don't have any issues with when it comes to mounting CCTV or telco. We do have a fair few clients that we worked closely with to be able to provide them. You've obviously got a lot less deflection for these sorts of things. They need to be a bit more rigid so that they're not interrupted at all. We Wagners have an in-house drafting and engineering team that can design these. So if there is a job out there that you guys are considering using composite with, absolutely get in contact and we can work through that one.
Great. Thanks, team. I think that's going to conclude our webinar today. Brad and Stuart, thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge and sharing the results of the trial with us. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. There's a couple of things I want to wrap up on before we head out. Feedback forms. Look, if you can take 2 minutes of your time to complete the feedback form today on today's webinar, that would be hugely helpful to us. You can use the QR code on the screen there now, or I'm just popping the link to the feedback form in the chat facility there now. Your feedback is hugely valuable to us. It helps us bring you better webinars in the future. It will only take 2 minutes, so if you can complete that feedback form, I'd be most grateful. I also just wanted to let you know about the next webinar that's coming up, which is going to be an absolute corker. We're going to discover how Magrin and Associates and Larkham General Builders designed and constructed a world-class ecotourism experience on South Australia's Kangaroo Island. We're going to be joined by Magrin Technical Director and Senior Engineer Will Souter and Kangaroo Island-based builder Jake Nolan from Larkham General Builders. Again, you can use the QR code on the screen, or I'll put the link in the chat now, but don't forget, I'll also send it out in our follow-up email, so you'll be able to sign up or register for that event through there as well. So that concludes today's event. We are going to head out on that great video that we came in on, and look forward to seeing you guys next month when we have a look at Admiral's Arch. We'll see you then.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, We're driving cars on a